So one thing that attracted us to Idaho City when we got here is obviously, it's really close to a big city. And that works both ways. What's nice is if you're here and you want to go back to town and, have a nice dinner in downtown Boise, or you want to be a part of the city life, it's only 45 minutes away. But what I love about up here is once you're up here, it feels like you're worlds away from any big city. And I think one thing about this town that I really think is awesome is the way it celebrates its history. And you go down Main Street and you see that there's still the original 1850, 1860 buildings, and you just kind of get a sense of, what life used to be like. And I think in today's day and age, we're so easily to not think about history and just think about what's the latest in technology and this and that and the other. So I think for us, and our goal was bringing a contemporary, modern development here. So there's obviously a combination of new and old, and having a tiny home where we're showing people kind of the latest and what's happening in tiny homes, the latest options that are available, whether it be the smart glass, whether it be your tankless water heaters, whether it just be, just the modern aesthetic that your drop structures bring. We're really just trying to deliver on making sure that folks come here, they have everything they need once they get here, and they don't have to leave here if they don't want to. You have goals, you have visions, you have dreams, and a lot of people will tell you, and we've had a lot of pushback, whether it was from people saying, oh, you don't have enough experience, or there's no way you're going to pull that off, or that's going to be just way too much work. All of that kind of, I guess even petty negativity is really what, makes me get up early in the morning and makes me stay working late at night, because I do thrive against, the odds, so to speak, or the adversity. This is a beautiful place to be. The city is just, it's just one of those throwback towns that, people just live life simply in the fact that, it's about relationships and their time and their family and all that. And I think that's so much, gets so lost in today's world. It brings you back to that simpler place where, life's a whole lot less complicated. It really feels good to have spent the time and integrated myself in a new community and just got to meet some super great people, and the learning part of it. That's super a big part of, I think, the life process. Sometimes you get so consumed in what you're doing, you don't take the moment to take a step back and really be grateful for what we've done and what we've accomplished. And I'm just stoked. I'm stoked that we were able to, get this far, and knowing that, yeah, it's been super hard. Failure is really your biggest teacher, right? And so this project has had a bunch of failure in it. So you get to this part and you kind of know you're at the end of phase one, and now phase two is really about delivering the customer experience. So there is a huge sense of relief, of course, and just being able to open our doors and let people in is a huge milestone.